Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. Today we're going to talk about how to make your kombucha batches more resilient. So today we're going to talk about how to make your kombucha batches more resilient to mold and harmful pathogens, especially if it's in certain circumstances that might make it a little bit more susceptible to growing mold. Things like if you move to a new location and your SCOBY is reacclimating to its new environment, or if the weather is changing and the temperature is dropping. Cold temperatures, as I've mentioned in other videos, can slow down fermentation and therefore make kombucha batches a little bit more susceptible to mold if the fermentation doesn't get kickstarted with enough acidity. And just in general, people come to me with questions about how to make sure that their batches are mold proof and how to really prevent mold from happening to their batches. And I will say that the biggest tool that we have against mold is good, strong acidic starter tea. In a few of my other videos, I talk about the importance of using starter tea and using good, strong acidic starter tea. I highly recommend watching my video on SCOBY hotels and SCOBY care because I basically use my SCOBY hotels as factories for really, really strong acidic starter tea or kombucha vinegar. And that's what I use to inoculate all of my kombucha batches with really acidic starter tea. And I think that's a really big reason why I've only ever encountered one moldy batch of kombucha in my years of brewing, which is a pretty good track record. And the mold only happened because I didn't use that much starter tea and because the temperature dropped. So I am passing along this knowledge in the hopes that you don't need to follow in my footsteps with that one failure. So the average acidity of the kombucha starter tea or kombucha vinegar in my SCOBY hotel is about 2.5, which is really acidic and a lot more acidic than just finished kombucha tea that's fit to drink. That level of acidity makes batches a lot more resilient to mold. So I typically like to use around 2 cups of strong starter tea per gallon batch of kombucha. But if you know that the weather is about to get cold, or if you've just moved to a new environment, or you're just really scared that your batch is gonna get moldy for whatever reason, then I recommend just bumping up the amount of starter tea and using 3 cups per gallon batch instead of 2. That should help acidify your brew and add an extra layer of protection just to minimize the likelihood for mold. If you don't have a strong stockpile of starter tea, let's say you're just getting started brewing and you don't have an established SCOBY hotel yet, you can go to the store and buy store-bought unflavored raw kombucha and use that to bump up the amount of starter tea that you use in your batch. It won't be as acidic as starter tea that's been sitting in a SCOBY hotel for weeks and weeks, but it's still better than nothing. So if you're really concerned about your batches getting moldy and you want to just bump up the amount of extra kombucha and starter tea and good bacteria and yeast in your brew, that's another option that you can take as well. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. I also want to plug my book, The Kombucha Crafter's Logbook, which is now available on Amazon. If you haven't heard about it yet, I summarize pretty briefly a lot of my recipes and tips and troubleshooting guides in the reference sections of this book. But what I'm really excited about is all of the tracking logbook pages that you can use to take detailed notes and track each of your kombucha batches as you brew them. So if you're interested, definitely give that a look. I hope you found this video useful. Happy brewing!